All right, Browns fans, welcome to the Brownie Points Podcast. Today, we're going to get into the offense. We're going to talk about what an abysmal display that we saw. We're going to do some finger pointing. Was it Kevin Stefanski, DTR? We'll get into that. We're going to talk about the defense. Did Jim Schwartz falter? Did we finally see this defense show some signs of weakness? Then we're going to get into our Brownie Points segment where we talk about the standouts on offense and the standouts on defense. Getting started today, last week in our predictions, we said this week was going to win. We said the Browns will win. We said it was going to be ugly, but the Browns were going to eke out a win. It was definitely ugly, but they did not eke out the win. They got destroyed. It really wasn't close at any point in the game outside of those first three throws that DTR made where you were like, oh, okay, that wasn't so bad. All right. And then it was all downhill from there. Whose fault was that? Because 3 points is unacceptable. Yeah. There's no middle ground on that. It's unacceptable. Everybody agrees. Whose fault was that? Because for me, I point the finger at DTR.
Yeah, so for me, it's Kevin Stefanski. Now, obviously, let's put an asterisk on our prediction because obviously we expected Watson to be out there.
Yes.
And maybe he wasn't playing the best, but he certainly played at a better level than that.
Yeah.
From my perspective, it's more Stefanski. And DTR certainly didn't play well. That's not that I'm saying that he played well and the scheme failed him, but you have to have an alternate plan. You're there while he's not throwing a practice Watson, right? He's not throwing balls all week long. You know there's a chance, and it's the same problem I've had with Stefanski time and time again. He doesn't adjust. That game plan was the game plan for Watson. As a matter of fact, there were specific sources. I've heard some people saying that they have specific sources saying, players saying, not a cent different from the game plan. The game plan did not alter at all. You cannot expect a rookie in his first outing, in a brutal outing, in his first game, playing against the Ravens in a big division game, to come out there and play at the same level as really any starter who's been established, let alone, your Pro Bowl guy. But you can't expect him to go through reads properly. You can't expect him to do these things. You have to baby a bit. You've got to do more short passes, hope to build confidence, use the running game a little more. They're not always going to be perfect, but you have to use it to the edge. You got to do more screens. You have to make things easy and then hopefully build up to those couple shots. Mm-hmm. And based on how the defense had played the last 3 weeks, I would have liked to have seen you certainly start that way until you've gotten to a point where things got bad, because without the pick, things would not have gotten bad till the second half. So you never know what would have happened. I would have liked to at least felt like when I went in there that there was a real game plan. I didn't expect a win once DTR was in the game, but I expected a different game plan, an attempt to change things, to work to help DTR in that game. But yeah, I think he deserves blame. Secondary blame going to Barry for trading Dobbs. He traded him. I was like, wow. I thought they were going to keep him. If you remember, I thought he was going to be the backup. I said, DTR's probably not ready yet. And then they traded him, and I said, wow, I guess he must be really showing out.
Right. That's what I thought.
Only Dobbs then turns out he's not playing badly. He's playing great down there in Arizona. So he looks like a legit backup. I mean, like one of the better backups right now. That's what he looks like.
Oh, absolutely.
I want to tell you. In the meantime, DTR looks like he's not ready at all, and you trade him for a 5th-round pick. Like, was that really worth it?
Yeah. I mean, I completely agree with a lot of the things that you said. I don't agree with everything because obviously for me, I think there's more blame to DTR than there is to Kevin Stefanski. I saw those same reports that they didn't change any part of the game plan. To that degree, I completely agree with you that when you have a backup come in, you have to change something. Yes, they have similar skill sets, similar ability to escape, speed, athleticism, but he's still a rookie and he's also not Deshaun Watson. You have to adjust something. You got to change it somewhat. The question is, I wonder how much he felt he was able to change because Nick Chubb was out. He may have felt like, hey, we don't really have a running game to rely on. If Nick Chubb was in there, he might have felt, okay, we're going to make this more of a running game, and then we'll do some play actions utilizing DTR with some, bootlegs and stuff like that to give him some more space, give him a little bit more time, get him in his comfort zone. But with Nick Chubb out, he may have felt like his hands were tied, and he may have felt that, maybe the best thing to do is to just roll this same game plan out, because it's not like we can just lean on the run game. Jerome Ford is decent, we think. We don't really know for sure, but we think he's okay. But he's not Nick Chubb, who you can just lean on for an entire game. So Kevin Stefanski may have felt slightly trapped in that way. That's A. B, my second point is that I think the reason why I point more of a finger at DTR is because I don't think the scheme really failed him. When I was watching that game, I saw a rookie quarterback, making rookie quarterback mistakes over and over and over and over and over and over again. I saw a player who was locking eyes on the number one receiver, throwing it to double coverage, trying to squeeze that ball in, triple coverage even on one occasion, if I recall correctly, locking in on that number one receiver when there were guys open. I saw a lot of plays where he was scrambling around for his life, or he was forcing that ball into double coverage when there was somebody else open. I don't think he did a good job going through his reads. I don't think he did a good job being satisfied with checkdowns and taking little small victories. I don't know if the Browns even strung together 3 first downs in a row in that whole game. It was struggling, and I got a lot of flashbacks to Deshaun Kaiser. I mean, first of all, their build is kind of similar. They're both sort of athletic, but they also both had this habit of, because they're both kind of like lanky guys. They both have this habit of trying to make the most out of every play in a bad way, right? Deshaun Watson also has that habit, and that's something that mobile quarterbacks have to learn, is how to balance your ability to run and turn nothing into something with when you should cut your losses and throw the ball out. And to some degree with those quarterbacks, you can't be perfect every time, and you are just going to have to live with some, bungled plays, like when Deshaun Watson threw that ball backwards. But you want to see more positive than bad. With that game, we didn't really see that. I think we saw DTR trying way, way too hard. And you saw him, being chased, falling back and thrown off the back of his foot, just chucking it up into the field, which was something we saw Deshaun Kaiser do a lot. Got us into a lot of terrible situations. He's lucky he didn't get picked more often, to be completely honest, with some of those plays he was doing. He's thrown off his back foot way too much, but mostly I felt like he was missing open guys. And that's why I blame him, more so than I blame Kevin Stefanski. But you are right, he should have made some adjustments. You can't leave it exactly the same, even if you don't have Nick Chubb out there. So for that, I completely agree with you. I don't know if you got any counters to that.
Yeah, I do actually. So number one, regarding the run game, you can't lean on him like you would Chubb, but they didn't lean on the run game at all whatsoever. They threw the ball 50 times. That's not acceptable, and you can't expect your rookie quarterback to throw 50 times. I don't care if the run game is doing mediocre. You do something. You put in
But when
some
you're
pitches.
down 21-3, you have to throw.
But they weren't down 21-3 for a while, and they were still throwing. And you know what I mean? Like, I get eventually you have to. And the reason why I went to 50 is, yes, because of that. But the way they were throwing at a pace of 35 to 40 when your aim should have been about 25 pass attempts at most. So I do feel like they still underutilized it. Some pitches, some screens to supplement, I think, would have been good. Mm-hmm. Number two, I did still think there were guys open, but one too many progressions away, one too many, 10, 15 yards too far away. I just think that when you watch rookies, typically what they're doing is simplifying the offense. So it's not that guys aren't open, it's that they'll say you have 2 reads, and if it's not there, throw it away. It's just like 1, 2. So it's super simple. So it's just like, here's the pare down version. And you always want to have some version of that where at least you have a bunch of plays like that you can go to when you know your backup is a rookie. You want to have a few of those that you've gone through, and especially when you think he might play that week. So you want to have at least a couple that, and I didn't really see any of that. So it's one thing if there wasn't a complete game plan, okay. But some of that, I'm a little hard on him, but I feel like he's really struggled with adjustments. I just wanted to see some more adjustment from him to show some of that ability to think on the fly and make those quicker adjustments. And so at least until the second half, I was hoping to see more from that angle. But DTR definitely didn't play well. It's definitely a good wake-up call for him. Hopefully he learns from it. I don't think he's altogether terrible, but he was not at all ready. This is also definitely on him. It's not like he doesn't deserve blame. He wasn't ready. You can see the way he's playing. He was not ready. He didn't think he was going to play. It showed. That's unacceptable. When you're a backup, you can't do that. Definitely there. Again, Barry, I don't know why you traded Dobbs. That was weird.
Yeah.
He's really looking good. I mean, wow. So, yeah, I mean, that's my take on it. So we both more or less agree. I mean, sure, we might put more blame on one or the other, but
yeah.
Ultimately, that bad of a showing is just rough to watch.
For me, it's 70% on DTR, 30% on Kevin Stefanski.
I'm putting 60% on Stefanski. And I put more on Stefanski, also that much more than you are, because I expect DTR to not be that good.
Right.
I don't expect my head coach to do that. You know what I mean? He's the backup rookie quarterback, so I already have low expectations. Mm-hmm. When you're the head coach and you insist on calling plays, you put more expectations when you insist on calling plays.
Yeah.
Now you're demanding certain responsibility. I need you to do certain things. I need you to do your best to put him in a position. That's the bare minimum.
Yeah.
More as in, I didn't expect the world from him. So he still gets blame. He gets like 30%, 60% Stefanski, 10% Barry, because I don't know, you can't put too much on one game, but like, why did you trade him? But he deserves blame because it was unacceptable the way he showed up. But again, like I personally am like, I was going to put more blame on the boss for not doing something to create a better position.
Right. I mean, I think that's fair. Before we move into our next segment, where we talk about the defense and Jim Schwartz, after a game like that, it's not going to be just you. There's going to be a lot of people questioning Kevin Stefanski and questioning that relationship between him and the quarterback. How well does he know him? How well did he perform? There was some kind of rumor that you wanted to clear up about Baker Mayfield and Kevin Stefanski or the Browns coaching staff.
Yeah, just really quick PSA for people in case they've seen this. This has gone out on, it was a tweet originally, and then it was all over some articles. There was a tweet saying that Baker had a quote, I'm going to paraphrase, in a press conference stating that it's really good, feels good to play with a coaching staff that lets him play to his full abilities. He only had that one other time with Sean McVay and nobody else. Just a quick PSA. It's not true. He never said that. So it sounds like something he would say, right? But no, he didn't say that. So just so you know, he didn't actually.
Yeah, you got to be careful with these quotes, especially when they come from players who you wouldn't be so surprised that they would say something like that. But good to know because this is a point where we're questioning the coaching staff after a game like that. So I think that it's important to clear up the rumors. Moving into our defense segment, which was the strong point of the season. We talked about, in previous episodes, is this defense so strong that you're going to be able to rely on them to win games with Deshaun Watson, as we talked about, because this is when he was playing more like a backup. If he's playing like a backup or, let's say, a bridge quarterback, is this defense good enough where that can be okay? Because we've seen teams do that and win about 10 games, and maybe even win a playoff game doing that. But is that going to be enough now? So we talked about that in this game. Certainly didn't seem like it. Did Jim Schwartz falter in this game, or was this just a case of the circumstances of the game?
I don't think it was so much of a Jim Schwartz issue. There were some things that didn't go maybe quite according to plan. It does sometimes happen with aggressive play callers. Someone pulls one off on you. But quite frankly...
Especially Lamar.
Yeah, especially Lamar. But I felt like the tackling was pretty poor. Especially in the secondary. Especially when they got to that next level, it just kept going because the tackling was really poor.
I think they took bad angles. It looked like when they were coming in, they were super aggressive on a lot of tackles. And then they would take this tight angle, and then Lamar, using his speed, would get around them, and then they'd just be wide open.
And just also quickly on the whole performance, there's a reason why I wasn't so quick to say they're the best defense in the NFL. I said, look, like they're definitely up there, but you got to wait a little longer. Next week, all of a sudden, the Cowboys are right back up on track. So are the Niners, more or less. The Cardinals are showing they got a little bite, but the Niners look good. Our defense doesn't look good. Now, don't get me wrong, it doesn't kick this defense all the way down. It just means that it's still very much a scrum in that top three defenses. In terms of the defense, I was hoping not necessarily that they would drag us to all the wins, but more is provided on ramp for Watson, a slow ramp, so that he wouldn't have to be all the way at the top right away. Like he can slowly get better as they hold down the fort to get us those wins. So hopefully by playoff time he's up and running properly, as you would hope someone getting paid the kind of money he is and the history he's had in this league could play at. So because in the playoffs this isn't gonna fly, right? But as far as his defense goes. Yeah, I mean, the tackling I thought was suspect. I think some of the effort did get to a certain point suspect a little bit. I don't think it didn't look like anybody quit per se, but it does happen where you feel like there's no hope. And you're just not going to play with the same burst in you.
At which point did you feel like that happened?
In the second half.
Second half?
About midway through the second quarter or so. It was like they were struggling a bit, don't get me wrong. And the Ravens did give them some issues, definitely. But then also, I think it also got to a point where, if it was close, the defense may have rallied again. But because it just felt like you weren't playing with any hope, the offense couldn't do anything. You're not going to play with that same burst when you're on the field all the time now, and you feel like there's nothing happening. There's no momentum. There's no way for momentum. When you're playing with a Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow any other year but this year, you still play hard because you believe that, hey, if we're within a couple of touchdowns, he can find a way to catch fire. When you're playing with DTR the way that was going, you figure, look, this game's over. So I think that definitely played into it.
Yeah, going off of that, that's the point where I think you saw this defense falter. Because, I should say falter in their ability to actually hold them down. There was this point that felt really tangible where the defense realized DTR is not going to do anything for us today. And if we want to win this game, we can't just be good. We have to be dominant. There was this point where I felt like watching the defense where they amped up the aggression, lost their gap discipline, and started just going all out. And that's what I'm talking about when they were taking bad angles. Like I said, they didn't have this gap discipline that they had before. You just see the puck collapse suddenly and like, oh, wow, look at all that pressure. And then just like, oops. You'd be like, oh, wow, look at all that pressure. And he makes a little move and then bam, it's wide open because they're all crowded. And they're just something we saw in the past in the Browns a lot. And the Browns had improved upon that up until this game. But I think they abandoned some of that philosophy, some of their defensive fundamentals, because they felt like this game is out of control. And they felt like we have to make big plays in order to even have a shot at this. And then later on, I did start to see some of that, some of their motivation, you feel like, wane a little bit. I think Myles Garrett played well throughout the game. You know, and I'm not saying everybody was like that, but I think as a team, there were points where you were starting to feel like the defense knows they're not going to win this game, that nothing's going to happen from the offense. Those are my unfortunate thoughts. And as a result of that, I'm not going to say that Jim Schwartz faltered. I think that it's unrealistic to ask any defense to be standout every single game. So I think for right now, I want to call this a blip, especially because Jim Schwartz has a history before he came to the Browns. So I'm going to consider this more of a blip. We'll take it what we see next week, see what happens. Also, this defense gave up 28 points, but they kind of really only gave up 21 because that 7 was because of that bad play from the offense, which gave them the ball right there, and all that was just one run to Lamar Jackson. So even though they gave up 28 points, which isn't great, not even all 28 are even really on them. So the scoreline did make it seem slightly worse than it was, but the eye test told you that the defense was not great today. But like I said, I'm going to suspend judgment for a little bit. I don't know if there's anything that you want to add before we move into our Brownie Point segment.
Yeah, so I definitely think that's true. I mean, the NFL is a year. It's just a game where week to week you'll get these really big emotional impacts, and you're high and you're low. You kind of got to look back and say, okay, like calm down. You got to remember that in 3 weeks we'll probably have a totally different perspective on everything, because also your opponents take on different meanings, right? Like the Steelers just got destroyed 30-6. The Bengals got destroyed by the Titans 27-3. And suddenly the Bengals doesn't really mean much. The Steelers, that one really doesn't look good. You know, I mean, On the other hand, they beat the Raiders not too badly. The Raiders aren't that good. It's still early, so it's really hard to tell. I definitely think, look, the way the defense played this first 3 weeks, I think they're for real. It's just to what level, and we'll find that out. There's no need to jump to conclusions. And a quick negative mention for Elijah Moore, running backwards 20 yards.
Yeah.
Throw the ball away. First of all, more people need to do that. You get a little space, I don't care. You can throw it away. Throw it away.
It's in the backfield, yeah.
Yeah, throw it away. But even besides that, take a 6-yard loss. Don't go all the way back. My God.
That was a real Madden
awful.
play.
That was Madden. Which side note, did you see that Cowboys faking the extra point and then going for a 2-point conversion?
No, I was honestly really busy on Sunday. I basically
on the
only
first
saw the Browns
touchdown
game.
of the game.
They did what?
They faked the extra point and then went for a 2-point conversion on a pass.
That's so dumb.
They completed it. I just reminded me of Madden plays.
That feels pretty dumb.
That was a Madden
though,
play
yeah.
right there.
Like I mean, not high risk. I guess you're only giving up 1 point technically, but not exactly a high reward either. It feels like, what's the point in that?
It was just a Madden play that stuck to me. But we want to make one quick point. Sometimes we're talking about NFL people making decisions in the moment that feel good, and then later on not so good. Let's talk about the Bengals just for a minute, because they're in the division. Mm-hmm. They thought they were so clever. They were going to draft Jamar Chase, and everybody was wrong. They shouldn't draft Penei Sewell. They're smart. They're going to get all these weapons. Well, how is Chase looking now? He's open, but that ball ain't coming. Right. And Burrow, their franchise quarterback, is just getting injured more and more. This guy who's consistently dealing with injuries and consistently seems to be heading from a trend of looking like a Ben Roethlisberger to a Andrew Luck, a guy with a ton of potential who we will never fully see the outcome of because he has no line, because he's getting injured all the time. These franchises, these people think they're so smart. Sewell is amazing. He's a really good left tackle for the Lions, a team that has built a strong roster and is doing really well with clearly sustainable success. They are not reliant on anyone. They just change over the running back room. They're doing great. The Lions built it right. They thought they were so clever. You cannot build a good team without at least a decent offensive line. And when you get a franchise quarterback, protect him. You had a great quarterback, great receiver in Higgins. You could build around that. You didn't need Chase. You needed Sewell. So as good as Chase is, ignoring the fundamentals in football will always come back to bite you. And they thought they were clever. They got cute. And at first it looked like they were right. But now it looks like they made a huge mistake.
Yeah, I remember saying to my friend how stupid it was when they drafted him. And then I remember talking to him later and saying, like, I thought they were dumb, but I guess they were smarter than me. It worked out for them. And now, not so much, right? Kind of like short-term gain, long-term loss. Let's move into the Brownie Points segment. Last week, this was a happy segment. Today, not so happy. The Browns scored 3 points. So there's really not much to talk about when it comes to offense. I'm going to run through all of them because it's going to be real quick. Because we already talked about the offense and how poor it was and who we want to blame.
I do have offense.
But,
brownie points to give.
Oh, 1 second. Me too. I'm giving nobody 3 brownie points because nobody was truly a standout player on offense. And I'm giving nobody 2 brownie points because nobody was that good either. Nobody was pretty good.
I have 2.
I'm only giving out, I'm going to let you go right after me. Okay. I'm only giving out 1 brownie point, and that's going to Dustin Hopkins because he did hit that 50-yard field goal. He scored. He scored a 50-yard field goal. What'd you say? He's
my 2. I'm giving him 2 partially as recognition for his season so far.
Right.
Because he's actually played really well. He's had 1 missed field goal.
Best kicker we've had in a long time.
Yeah, and he's made multiple 50s. He's the best since Dawson. Not as good as Dawson, but best since then. Dawson, yeah. Not even close. He's been consistent. He's hit multiple 50-yarders. He's been good. He was asked to hit 1, and he hit it immediately, and he hit it from over 50 yards. I think he deserves 2. Honestly, again, partially based on the fact he's just played really well this season so far. And I want to give somebody 2 because, yeah. So he's going to get 2. 1 is David Njoku. I give David Njoku 1 because he actually caught 6 for 60 yards. Mm-hmm. And for a game where nobody was doing anything, every chance he got, he took advantage of. So when you do it often enough where it's just every time you're there, you're doing something and making something positive, I want to give you recognition. So I just think that, he took as much advantage of whatever could be taken advantage of from the passing game that could be done, led the team in receiving. I think he deserves some kudos for that. So yeah. I'm giving him 1. Realistically, again, Hopkins is partially based on the past. Nobody really earned 1 today, but yeah, for those reasons. And again, Njoku just taking advantage of it all. And I think if we had a better performance from DTR, a halfway acceptable one, he's probably looking at 80 to 100. So
yeah, probably.
I'll give him 1.
All right. That's fair. Moving into the defense, do you have anybody at 3 brownie points for the defense?
No, definitely not.
For me, I want to give that to Myles Garrett. I did think Myles Garrett was a standout player from the beginning pretty much to the end of the game. I saw him getting a lot of pressures. He did have a sack, I believe, but he was getting a lot of pressure. I saw him getting into the backfield, mucking up a lot of plays where he was collapsing the pocket, getting involved. He might have been a half sack or other people involved, but I saw him collapsing the pocket very consistently from the first quarter to the fourth quarter to the second quarter, third quarter. I saw him consistently getting pressure, so I wanted to give him 3 brownie points. Did you have somebody at 2 brownie points?
That was Garrett.
You have Garrett at 2? For me, I have Okonkwo at 2, actually. I want to give him a shout-out. He didn't really get any time until the second... Okoronkwo, whatever. Sorry, Okoronkwo.
It's hard to pronounce.
I'm gonna mess it up a little bit. Okoronkwo, something like that.
Sir Okie dokie.
But, yeah, when he came in, because he wasn't really playing at the beginning, but when he came in, I thought he popped a little bit. I thought he had some plays. He did have a sack, I think, or a huge tackle for a loss. I saw him involved in a lot of plays. I saw a lot of effort from him. I thought he looked really good. I think he deserves more time next week. So I would like to see that. We'll see what happens. But I think when he got his time to shine, I think he did.
That's fair. Personally for me, if you're going down to my 1 brownie point, I'm going to give it to Newsome because the only people who made any plays were Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews. Neither are his assignment. And nobody else on that receiving core for the Ravens really did much of anything.
Yeah, and Greg did have that great tackle.
And he had that great tackle. So I'm going to give Newsome a brownie point because sometimes we forget about corners because when you don't hear from them, it's often a good thing. So
yes. Although on this podcast, we have been good with rewarding the quarterbacks. We talked about Denzel Ward.
So
I think every week he was getting credit.
Steve Flowers got a couple nice ones today.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give it to Newsome.
Yeah, for me, I wanted to give it to a corner, and I was feeling like I didn't want to hit too hard on Denzel Ward because while Zay Flowers did make some plays, they're kind of great throws, to be fair. But for me, I'm also going to give it to Greg Newsome because I think he was the best, certainly out of all of them, because Denzel Ward still wasn't great. At the end of the day, those plays still happened. Emerson, I think, was overall actually okay, but and then the plays, at the end of the day, it still happened. Like, the Browns really got gashed. I mean, Lamar Jackson had some great throws, but overall, they were really gashed, I felt like, on the run game, and then they played off of that.
It was honestly disappointing to see Andrews doing what he's doing because it feels like either JOK should be spying and keeping Lamar in there, or he should be covering a guy like Andrews so that you're not getting destroyed like this on both ends. Like, that was a little disappointing.
All right, so wrapping up our podcast, we're going to do one final segment. We'll talk about the bye week coming up. I think that before the season, we wouldn't have wanted to be at this time, but now that it's here, it came at a pretty good time. So Deshaun Watson can get healthy, and Myles Garrett can get healthy because I think he was on a boot or something. I think he tweaked something there. So hopefully he can get healthy, and I think it turned out to be at a good time. We're not going to give our predictions because we want to see what the team we're playing against looks like, how they look next week.
Yeah, and the one advantage I will say about the bye week with the Browns, the one thing that could play to our advantage, I should say, about this coming early is Stefanski historically has made adjustments at the bye week. So he makes his big game plan at the beginning of the year, and that could be different than last year. He'll make a whole new game plan. And then he'll make a big adjustment at the bye week, historically. Now, historically, those have also come much later in the season. Mm-hmm. So that definitely plays a role. Don't get me wrong. He may need to see more failure before he makes a decision. I don't know. Yeah. But we could be looking at a very different looking offense, maybe not totally different, but with some adjustments made and a different plan. And now that he's seen some things play out, so definitely look for some new wrinkles, new changes, new outlook to the offense coming off the bye week. And yeah, we're definitely gonna look at health. Watson not playing, that's gonna be a big part of this. You would think, based on the way things played out, that he would play coming off the bye week, but only time will tell for sure. Hopefully, it doesn't rush in too quickly. And we'll find out where that is. And then Garrett, it doesn't seem too serious. So hopefully he should be back. And hopefully after this rest and time to evaluate, don't let this loss hang on you too much. And just use this to refocus and push forward and get that positive start off the bye week. Don't fall down. Because the last thing you want to do is lose the next couple of games or something like that. And let that negative momentum drag you down. Come out of this strong and take advantage of this
early positive
break.
Again. Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully that's what we see from them, and thanks for listening.
See you guys 2 weeks from now.